Guantanamo Bay was just a place where we put people that fit the bill, brown-skinned and a beard, in an orange suit. And anybody that's brown-skinned and has a beard and is in an orange suit looks like a terrorist. It's just a place so that Americans felt safe at night. So they built 800 cells, and they filled them with detainees. Detainees who, for the entirety of the time that I was there, protested that they had done nothing wrong. Now, almost 5 years after I've been away from Guantanamo Bay, that I've had nothing to do with the place, over 500 people have been released from that camp without trial, without charge, without any kind of, without anything legislatively being brought against them. That's over 500 people that we've ripped years out of their lives. I'm not here to tell you about my trauma or my experiences. I just want you to think about these things. I want you to think about what that means to those people. It's easy to forget them. The news shows us a few minutes here and there of what's going on in Guantanamo Bay, and then we've got to go out and buy more makeup or more computers or drive our cars around and talk on our cell phones. But it's important that we remember these things. We collectively are destroying people's lives. These men whom now I've had the opportunity to finally meet with are affected for the rest of their lives. They've had nothing to do with this. They were apprehended under entirely skeptical premises. They were taken from their homes. They were taken from the places where their families were. They were labeled as enemy combatants, though they were taken from their houses in the middle of the night while not having any weapons whatsoever. I've never met one single person in Guantanamo Bay who says they'd ever been caught on a battlefield with a weapon. One person, one guy. I met one guy who was in Iraq and said that he was fighting because the Americans had impeded on his soil. They charged into his country, and that he was defending his country against that, like any American would, if that had happened on our country, on our soil. And it's true. That's primarily why I was moved to the Detention Operations Center. So for 2 months of my time in Guantanamo Bay, I worked on the blocks. I walked up and down cell blocks with 48 cells, 24 on either side, for 8, 10, or 12-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. And I would dispense toilet paper. I would dispense food. I would take detainees out to shower and recreation. Normal block activities. These are just the activities that these men. This is their day. This is their day. They spend 24 hours of their day surrounded by 19 to 25-year-old American white assholes. We were just kids. We had no idea. They left. We were all lower enlisted. E5s and below in the camp, which meant sergeants at most running the camp. We had complete self-authority to do whatever we wanted to in those blocks, and there was little to no oversight in them. We regularly used a means of extracting detainees from a cell called an instantaneous reactionary force, or I'm not even sure if that's the right acronym. We start calling things we start using the acronyms. It was just the IRF teams. I don't even know what IRF stands for now. I just know that when they say IRF, or that somebody's going to get their ass kicked. First, they're going to get sprayed with mace, a chemical. It's an oil-based irritant like mace, but military grade. So it's made for the job. And then 5 men in riot gear storm into the cell and are free to beat this detainee for however long they want to, however they please. This happens regularly. This happens daily. This happens multiple times daily. This is something that the soldiers in Guantanamo Bay oftentimes take pride of. This is something that we mark on our helmets, on our Kevlars. This is something we talk about when we get home. This is something that people look forward to. It's a sport. It's a score. It's a number. It's something that you've chalked up while you're down there. We didn't ever think that these people were human beings. When we went down there, they were convicted terrorists. That was it. They were the worst of the worst. And it didn't even matter that they were terrorists. They were Muslims. They were brown. They were different from us. We were white, corn-fed hillbillies that had come straight out the trailer park with no education, no training, no job description, nothing. trained for a grand total of 30 days to trade our MOSs from 13 Bravo, from artillery to prison guards. And then when that inadequate training was over, which was the 3 days, sorry, I held up 2 fingers and then said 3, but 3 days of training inside of a chicken wire shack that we called like a block. We went and we smoked a lot of cigarettes, and we talked about how much we hated the military. That was our training for how to interact with detainees. Then we were told that Muslims wipe their ass with their left hand and that we shouldn't touch their left hand. And that was our cultural training for dealing with detainees. We were told to say Assalamu alaikum, and that's it, not even the response to Assalamu alaikum. And we were released into the camp. We got down into Guantanamo Bay. We were attached to a unit, and we started working the blocks. On my first day in the blocks, a detainee started screaming for toilet paper. TP, TP, TP. That's all I heard for like 10 minutes. And I was so crazy nervous. I couldn't even talk to this guy. I couldn't even walk up to the cell and look this guy in the eye and just get him some toilet paper. I was just there that was my only job, was to dispense toilet paper. I couldn't even grab the toilet paper and give it to this guy. I was such a shivering, nervous wreck the whole time I was there. That my first day was on an isolation block where people sit in hot boxes that are entirely enclosed metal boxes that have a little porthole on the front of them. And they scream out of that hole all day long of screaming. I was in college before this. I was dating, I was doing drugs, I was having fun. And now I'm listening to detainees scream for toilet paper out of a hole in a hot box. Awesome. Thanks, United States. I'm super stoked about my new job. So I finally got him the toilet paper. He was so pissed off by the time I finally treated him like a human and gave him his toilet paper that he grabbed my arm and pulled me into his cell. I remembered his face for the rest of my tour. I could see how angry he was. I could see how pissed off he was, how much he hated me, though he didn't even know me. He didn't have any idea who I was. He didn't care that I was 19. He didn't care that I used to like to play with Legos. He didn't care that my paperwork says that I didn't want to be there. He didn't care that I don't want to be an oppressor of people. He didn't give a fuck because he was kept inside of a cell. That's all that mattered to him. And I totally I got it. I understood. I don't want to be in a cell either, dog. I don't want to be trapped. I don't want to be in these things as much as you don't want to be in these things. I knew why he hated me, and then that's when I started hating me for all the reasons that he hated me, and that was the long psychological downward spiral that I went on for the rest of the time, just affirming all of the self-hatred I had through the looks that these detainees would give me, because not only was I white trash, just uneducated, poor, garbage people walking around amongst the rest of these poor garbage people, I was now essentially the same thing as the Nazi concentration camp guards of World War II that my grandfather had fought so hard to kill, to destroy, to dismantle that entire wretched, awful system. Now I was inside of the land of the free, on conquered soil, doing the same thing that we'd earlier fought against. And I had some pretty significant problems with this. I was moved from that to the Detention Operations Center, where I worked in the escort control. I managed the detainee movement. One of the problems as a veteran in explaining these things in any way, shape, or form that makes this palatable to you, or that you understand, and why I don't usually talk about my experiences, it would take me 2 years to sit in front of you and tell you about what I did in Guantanamo Bay. To try to truncate it into something that makes any sense, I spent 12 hours a day, every single day. Sometimes I got a day, sometimes I got 2 days off, but days off in Guantanamo Bay was still a day in Guantanamo Bay, so it wasn't like it was any joyride. We didn't have any carnivals in Guantanamo, and I would sit and I would dispatch the detainee movements. I had a roster of detainee movements to interrogations. All it was numbers. That's it. 555 has to go from Whiskey 32 to Gold Building Room 6. For an interrogation. He'll be there for 3 hours. I'll get a call when that's done. I call an escort team in. I hand him a pair of shackles. I hand him the keys in the lock. I hand him the number from where the detainee is to where the detainee's got to go. That was it. Totally dehumanized. We turned it into an entire process. We were just moving orange-suited things around a camp. It was just a game. It was just some irrelevant, disconnected thing for a long time.